Wednesday on Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there today. Great show coming up. Kent Youngblood from the Star Tribune and Dawn Plitzuweit, the head coach of the Gopher women's basketball team, joined me on stage at the State Fair, the Star Tribune stage on Tuesday night. Conversation about the upcoming season, all that good stuff. Play that back for you here in just a few minutes on today's episode. Just a really good conversation about the season ahead and what should be an optimistic year for the Gophers. Some Twins stuff at the end of the show. We're going to shove them back into the end of the show today. A little bit of a tough go for them lately. That's an understatement. But we'll get to them at the end of the show, and maybe we've had our eye on the wrong thing when it comes to the Twins and a key series coming up. They lost again last night, by the way. Almost felt like they lost twice. We'll get to that in a bit here. First, though, what I miss, Vikings cut down their roster on Tuesday. 53-man roster is now set. Couple of surprises, I guess. The biggest one being Kent Youngblood not kept. He had a pretty good preseason. Seemed like a guy who has some juice in the kick return game, and also maybe has some legs, getting his legs underneath him in the pass game as running back and as the pass game as well out of the backfield. He gets cut. Lewis Cine gets cut. Not a surprise, other than he was a first-round pick in 2022, right? The first draft of the new regime. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah presiding over that draft. A much-maligned draft. And we've been through that a couple times here, and particularly on Access Vikings. Ben Gessling has talked and written about that a fair amount lately as well. Lewis Cine, the first-round pick, cut. Andrew Booth Jr., the second-round pick from that draft, a cornerback, was traded like a week or two ago, basically because they were kind of out of patience, out of attempts with him, and just basically sunk cost at that point. He wasn't going to play for them. That was another miss. Ed Ingram, also a second-round pick, and he's slated to be a starting guard, but it feels like it's almost by default. He's not been a good player for them, really, and is part of an interior line that has struggled. But again, he has at least been in the lineup. But Brian Asamoah just has not tracked as what they thought either. Caleb Evans, fourth-round pick, no, still in the mix, but a reason why they have to go out and get all these veteran corners this year. So I thought it would be interesting. We've ripped the Vikings for this draft, and ultimately, before I get to the kind of caveats here, ultimately, they are the ones who are first and foremost judged on this, right? Their opinion is the one that has to be right, not anybody else's, not a pundit, not anybody else who is like doing draft grades, things like that. The Vikings' opinion is ultimately the only one that matters because they are the ones making the picks. They are the ones that have to live with the consequences, good or bad. However, I thought it would be instructive to go back and look at what was said right up to and right after the 2022 draft. And what I found was kind of interesting. If you look at the players who have basically been maligned the most, the players who we've said, man, the Vikings really missed on these guys. And then when we look at the draft as a whole, a lot of us missed on this, not just the Vikings. And again, like I said, Vikings are the only opinion that matters, so I'm not trying to let them off the hook. This is more of an exercise in what were we saying at the time? What did the pundits think? What did the data tell us about this draft class? If you look at it, I think where this class really falls apart is with the first three defensive players they took, right? At least Ed Ingram has played. He's got some potential still. He's going to start this year. Maybe this is the year he finds more of a solid, consistent footing at guard. Caleb Evans still has a chance. He's the fourth-round pick. But if you look at the first three defensive players they took, Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth Jr., and Brian Asamoah, those are the three where you'd like to look at it and say, okay, we got something there. These guys are now key contributors in year three, and that's not going to be the case with any of them. Two of them are gone, and Asamoah is a backup at this point. But you go to the Pro Football Focus big board, the top 250 consensus players going into that draft. You find all three of those players in the top 50. You find Andrew Booth Jr. at number 23. Said Booth has some of the best feet in the draft class. That is a praise of Andrew Booth Jr., the corner coming out of Clemson. They had him as the 23rd best prospect. Vikings draft him 42nd overall, so exceeding the big board draft, the draft slot. Lewis Cine, number 26 on the big board. Vikings, of course, drafted him 32nd after a trade down, a rather infamous trade down, considering they could have drafted Kyle Hamilton, who, by the way, on this list was pretty high up there as well. I'm going to look for him really quick on this big board. Kyle Hamilton was number 8 on the big board, so a lot of value there they passed up on. So that would have been the simplest thing to do, but we're not going to relitigate the trade. We're just going to look at the players they took and where they were ranked here. Lewis Cine, who the Vikings drafted at 32nd, was 26th on the big board, safety coming out of Georgia. So Cine was the biggest riser down the stretch for the Georgia defense, and he's one heck of a tackler. For his career, he missed only 11 tackles on 159 attempts. We won't know that so much with the Vikings because he's gone now, didn't really get a chance to get on the field much, surpassed by other safeties, derailed by an injury his rookie season, and then never really got on track. Brian Asamoah, third member of that group, another top 50 guy. Brian Asamoah was the 48th best prospect on the big board. Vikings drafted him again end of the early part of the third round, 66th overall. So 18, 20 spots ahead of where his big board grade was. It says Asamoah is undersized at 6'1" and 228, but he possesses sideline to sideline range. His processing skills took massive steps forward in 2021, causing his grade to jump from 57.1 to 76.3. He just hasn't been able to get on the field, right? He's been on the field a little bit, mostly a special teams contributor, not a lost cause, still an athlete, but got jumped in the rotation, especially when Ivan Pace Jr. emerged last season. We'd heard all about the leap that Asamoah was going to make in 2023. Instead, an undrafted rookie comes and starts playing a whole bunch instead of him. So that illustrates a little bit of what was being said before the draft and how the Vikings, their thinking was in line with one of the more respected groups, Pro Football Focus, the scouting groups in professional football, at least outside of any individual team. You look at the draft grades after the draft. Vikings, by and large, were seen as having a middle-of-the-pack draft. Only 2 out of 18 graders compiled here gave them worse than a C+. I got a lot of A- here, a lot of B+ and Bs. People generally liking what they did. There's a couple that didn't, a couple that kind of saw this coming, but others that that really liked what they did. I'm gonna keep the names anonymous, just because this is not an attempt to kind of go back and find receipts on somebody. We've all done it. We've all thought one thing and the other thing comes true. But this is just showing what the consensus was after the draft. Here's an A- grade that says Cine and Booth are great complementary players to their secondary and can learn well from Harrison Smith and Patrick Peterson. That's one grade that gave them an A-. Another A- grade says the Vikings did a nice job of grabbing draft picks and trades with desperate division rivals Detroit and Green Bay. I don't think either of those teams are desperate right now. The secondary needed help, and it got 2 immediate contributors in Cine and Booth, who would have been a first-rounder if not for injuries. Evans is an athletic, big-bodied corner worth the 4th-round pick, yada, yada, yada. So draft grades generally liked what they did. A lot of A-, B+, Bs. Couple of disaster grades like an F and a D-, but really most people thought, hey, this was a solid draft, maybe not the greatest draft, but a pretty good draft, even though it ended up not being that. So all of this just to say, right, the Vikings were not alone in thinking they had made good picks. A lot of people thought this at the time. Again, referring back to the original point, their opinion was the only one that matters. They missed. They have to be better. They need to be better in general in making these picks. But it is interesting to go back and look and see, hey, the consensus was that they got a lot of value at the top of the draft. That just did not prove to be the case.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Star Tribune stage. I'm Michael Rand from the Star Tribune. Dawn Plitzuweit, head coach of the Gopher women's basketball team, with us right now, as well as beat writer Kent Youngblood from the Minnesota Star Tribune. Is here to answer some questions, talk about the upcoming season, which should be a really fun and really interesting one. Kent, I'll turn it over to you for the first question, but yeah, let's go.
First of all, thanks for coming.
Yes,
yeah, awesome to be here.
I want to ask about, it's kind of an interesting roster this year. Once again, you have a number of new faces, but you also have all 5 of your starters back. Let's talk about the process of kind of integrating the new faces into really so much stability.
Well, we were talking before about the Lynx and how they're so connected and they're playing really well. And what's been really great about the newcomers, and we have 6 newcomers with us this year, 2 freshmen and 4 transfers, is that they are really connected to the returners, and I think that has a lot to do not only with the young ladies coming in, but the young ladies returning, who are really have done a great job of welcoming the newcomers.
It seems to me a much deeper team than you had last year, particularly at guard, where you have 2 freshmen and Kennedy when she's healthy, and in the post where you have 2 transfers in. What impact do you think that depth will have on your team?
Well, ideally it means that players don't have to play as many minutes, which keeps them fresher, which keeps them more efficient ideally, which builds, you're able to play harder. When we started, we said our 3 building blocks are toughness, togetherness, and this mentality, this resilience of find a way. Well, it's hard to play with incredible toughness if you have to play 36, 37 minutes, or even 33 minutes sometimes. So I think it helps us develop that toughness in how we defend, rebound, push the ball up the court, all of it.
How much do you expect to get out of your 2 freshman guards, and in particular Annika, who's coming back at center, and Taylor, who transferred in?
Right, so 4 new kids that are generally from this area. The 2 transfers, Taylor Woodson, who is now going to be a sophomore, obviously, played with the Maya Battle in high school, a superb athlete, somewhat of a different type of athlete than we have. I think she has the ability to impact the game in many, many ways that she still doesn't even know what all those ways are yet. Annika is someone who can stretch the floor for us, and that's really ideal with how we want to play. We have big guards. We can post them up. She can step out. She can space the floor, so that really helps us. Our 2 freshmen, Tori McKinney, is certainly from right down the road, is someone who has she didn't play her junior year of high school with an injury. Her senior year, had a great senior year, is someone who is so tough. She looks really thin, and she is really thin, but she's strong. And I'll tell you what, she is as competitive comes. And then there's Kenna Johnson, who is a lefty who can really stroke it. A kid that makes a lot of things happen.
Tori's really going to bolster the perimeter defense, isn't she?
She is. As a matter of fact, there were a couple times last year I wish we had her on the court to defend, because Tori can make things happen.
So let's talk about the people who are coming back. You have your top 5 scorers back. I think that you guys were a tournament team when Mara got hurt last year. What's the next step for that group?
Well, the next step for us is to be better in the Big Ten, right? And when you're better in the Big Ten, and we started that way, then you have a chance to play on in the NCAA tournament, and that's really a goal for us. It's something that we've got to develop a different level of toughness. So we talked about it this week. It's almost an edge. You have to have an edge to everything that you do. You've got to battle to win this possession, because one possession can be the difference. And so what does that really look like? And we're building that right now, I think.
How long do you think you've moved from you've been at a few jobs now, and you've started from scratch at new places. How long do you think it takes for a coach to really imbue her program with the culture that she wants it to have?
Well, it takes a little while, and I don't know the number of years per se, because I think it depends on the players that are there when you get there. And the great part about the players who were here when we got here is they want to be really good, and they have talent. And so now we need to just tweak things to continue to grow it. So I really believe this. You come watch us practice, and some of our front row participants today who have been at our practices this summer, and we play harder, we share the ball better, we score better, we defend better. We're just a better team this year than we were last year. Now, what does that guarantee you of? Not a whole lot, because Big Ten got better too, and adding the 4 teams that are joining our conference. And so we have to be really tough and really connected. So that's that toughness and that togetherness piece.
Is it different for you, though, now that you've been here a little while, to kind of get that message across, to not have to start from zero with that?
100%. And the great part is now we can show film of what it should look like. And we watch a lot of Lynx clips. As a matter of fact, today in practice, we watched Nafisa Collier take the ball the length of the court and lay it in. I think it was their last game against the Aces, but I'm not positive. But I think that was the game. And so we show a lot of clips of what we want it to look like. And because our young ladies care so much, and because they understand how important those details are, they try to lock in to the best of their ability to do it.
I want to talk a little bit about NIL, and it just keeps getting more and more complicated. We got revenue sharing coming up. To me, I mean, to have that group of young women stick around when there have to have been opportunities elsewhere says, I think, a lot about what they want to be and who they are. I mean, to have all 5 of them come back, it's kind of extraordinary in this day and age, isn't it?
It's really special. And so what I love about the fact that what NIL and revenue sharing, as we get into it, but right now we're in NIL space, is that they can receive a benefit for doing that, for making a decision to stay here and build Minnesota women's basketball. They can receive a little bit of a benefit financially for doing that, and I love that for them.
How much more complicated is your job now, though, than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. And I think the challenge is, how do you do what you love doing, which is developing players and developing the drills to run practice and get ready, and then break down film and do the recruit new young ladies to come join you. But you also better go raise some money, and you better also go take care of a lot of different things. And so that changes because you don't have an unlimited amount of time. And so delegating more and more isn't necessarily the easiest thing for many coaches, but you better be really efficient in what you're doing. A great thing for us is our staff has been together for quite a few years. So Aaron Horn and I think are going on our 8th or 9th season together. Jason's in year maybe 7 or 8. Ariel is someone I've known for a long time. Chloe, we've coached. Ty's been with us. So that part of it is really, really beneficial to us.
For all the team building you've been doing, I mean, to me, Mara is still kind of the straw that stirs the drink in a lot of ways in terms of what you guys can do. You guys were so good when she was healthy last year.
We were a different team.
Yeah. First of all, it had to have been very frustrating for her to have that year, interrupted the way it was. But what's the next step for her?
Right. Good question.
I mean, because I think she's got first-team Big Ten potential.
Right. Well, I will say this. She and I just had an interaction in practice either yesterday or today. I can't remember which one of them was, but she is really working on being even-keeled, because she's someone who emotionally can get really charged into the game, and that's great to see that, but it doesn't always help you to be able to perform at the highest level at all times. And so it's something she's, from a leadership standpoint, she's really working on being a great communicator, being a great leader for us. And I think she's been a really good leader, but she's continuing to grow that aspect of her game. And then really taking a look at, how does she grow from a performance enhancement, from a taking care of herself mentally during those tough times, during the good times. How do you stay where you need to be? We tracked a scoring percentage. We had a workout yesterday, and free throw percentage, and we had one player that scored over 80% in both those categories. It was Mara Braun. Now today we had quite a few more, so that was really good to see, but it starts with one, and she's, like you said, she's the one that starts a lot of those things for us.
I think one of the biggest benefactors of your WNIT run was Amaya.
Right.
I think she, maybe starting with the Big Ten tournament and into the WNIT, I thought she kind of found her stride. First of all, do you agree with that? And it's such an important position. What is the next step for her?
Well, first of all, I do agree with that. I thought the best things that could have possibly happened for Amaya was that she played so well in the Big Ten tournament. She played really well through most of the WNIT, and probably the blessing that happened, even though she doesn't see it as a blessing, is she didn't play well in the championship game. And so that really drove her during this off season to continue to grow, and to the point where she said, Coach, you give us a lot of quotes from this book called Atomic Habits, yet we haven't read that as a team. We've read all these other books. How do I get a copy of that book? I'm like, well, girl, you could probably buy a copy, but I'll give you a copy.
Right.
And so she's reading that on her own to try to help her continue to grow, and I love that. She's trying to transform herself.
I've actually read some of that book, but there's also some schools of thought. You hear a lot of coaches say you have to learn to lose before you can learn to win. Do you subscribe to that to a certain degree? You have to kind of go through some stuff before you know how to get it done when it matters the most?
Okay, well, I would agree with you. You have to learn how to go through stuff and figure out how to have that edge.
You don't want to lose.
No, I'm not into that.
Okay.
I don't really like that mentality. But
okay.
I do think there's benefits that we saw. We developed some confidence because we had a chance to go on the road in the WNIT and play against some really good teams and come out on top in situations that earlier in the season we couldn't do that. We've adjusted our schedule from last year to this year. When we got to the Big Ten tournament last year, that was our first tournament experience of the entire year. And we didn't like that. So this year we're not playing in one, we're playing in two tournaments. So we're excited about that. I think our schedule, non-conference schedule, is continuing to ramp up. But at the same time, you also have to be strategic about it, because you need to, from a net standpoint, when you look at the analytics of what you need to do to position yourself to play in the postseason, you need to win as many of those games as possible in order, but still be challenged, but you still need to win. And so you need to figure out what that looks like to the best of your ability with your team. And I think Jason Chesky from our staff has put together a schedule that suits us well.
You got rid of Caitlin Clark from the Big Ten, but now
she's not doing too poorly in the WNBA, is she?
But now you got Juju Watkins,
yeah, that's exactly right,
and a number of really quality programs. In your mind, how has it changed being a member of the Big Ten in terms of being competitive with the additions?
Well, it's hard for me to say that the Big Ten. Last year, it was as veteran as I've ever seen the Big Ten, and being around it for not all the last 20 to 25 years, but bits and pieces of those last 20 to 25 years, it's hard to say the Big Ten has ever been better than it was last year, in my opinion, because you had players like Caitlin Clark. Granted, she was in her fourth year, but you had the Kenzie Holmes of the world that should have been, even Sarah Scalia, who should have been playing in the WNBA, and now you're playing against them for an extra year. And so I thought the conference was absolutely outstanding last year. And so in a way, you're kind of thinking, all right, now we're becoming more veteran. And last year we were the youngest team in the conference, which was not a good year to be the youngest team in the conference. But now you're thinking, oh, we're becoming more veteran. Well, then all of a sudden you're adding three powerhouses really in women's basketball, and Washington, who is extremely well coached, who went to the WBIT championship game. So you're adding four incredible teams. So it's hard to say that the conference isn't going to be better this year.
Do you like that? I mean, traditionally in a conference tournament, you play everybody home and home.
Right.
Now you're only going to play one team twice. I mean, I guess that's the cost of doing business in the Big Ten now, but it just seems like such a different mindset.
It's absolutely different. So I think as a team, again, it comes down to your toughness, because you have to go on the road and be successful. You have to have toughness to take care of business at home. You'd better be ready to play on the road. And I thought one of the things that hurt us last year in our non-conference schedule is that we only had one road game the entire non-conference. So we were intentional in our scrimmage scenario to go on the road and practice it one time before we played Kentucky. This year we're seeing more games. I think we have 4 games, neutral site games on, in our non-conference. I think that helps us prepare for that. But it's completely different than anything any of us have ever experienced before. So, why not go? Again, I think there are 2 ways to approach it. One is like, man, this is crazy. It's different. We don't like it. Or it's crazy and it's different, and let's go be better at it than maybe some people expect us to be, or maybe be more prepared for it. So to figure out how to do that.
How do you as a coach know when you have a team that you like, or that is kind of getting to the point where they're there where you want them to be? What's that like for you? What does that look like?
Well, I think this is a team that has the ability to do that, very honestly. I get really excited. Today in our workout this morning, I looked at them and I said, it's a little detail, but we're doing a passing drill, and you have a choice. Are you capable of communicating at every pass? Yes, you're capable. Are you willing? No. But that one play, you're on the road, you're at home, wherever it is, that one possession where all of a sudden you didn't get to 2 feet and you're throwing a pass and your teammate's not looking and you didn't communicate and it goes off your hands out of bounds, or you did communicate, can make a huge difference in the game. And so after that, then they took it to a whole nother level, starting with Mara Braun, like yelling and screaming almost like crazy. But you know what? That's okay. I'm okay with that, because we're learning. And so I really like the fact that we respond at a high level.
Does it help when you have a player that will do that, not just you?
Oh, absolutely it does. But that's not a natural thing for most players to do.
Sure.
It's just not. And so it has to be built. It has to be wired into them. And that's just one example. Then it may be how they communicate on free throws, and maybe how they huddle on free throws. But every little moment matters.
We talked about this a little bit before, but you kind of have a different approach to the season this year. You didn't go to Europe,
right?
So you weren't preparing for games, as it were,
right?
You're not assumingly like still installing an offense,
right?
So were you able to work on different things this summer that might enhance, the performance?
We were. So what we did before the summer started is we took a look at how do our statistics compare to the 7 teams in the Big Ten that went to the NCAA tournament. What does that look like? What are the best teams in the nation statistically do in each of those categories, whether it's scoring at the rim or field goal percentage, whether it's three-point field goal percentage, whether it's free throw percentage, defensive field goal percentage, those type of things. We took a look at all of those numbers and figured out where are the 3 biggest areas of growth. You can't work on everything all summer long and then expect to be really improved in any area. And so we focused on 3 key areas. 1, scoring efficiency. And for us, that really focused, we said, we're going to focus on scoring around the rim. Your job is to practice shooting arc shots. Because if we're spending our time in the summer doing that, in our practice session, we're really fortunate because we can have practice guys come. And so they can defend, and you can't do that on your own, but you can practice shooting on your own. And free throws on your own. And so we focused on how to score around the rim. We focused on ball handling, specifically to pushing the ball up the court. We want to play faster. In order to play faster, we need more players that are confident ball handlers to push the ball up the court rather than saying, okay, Mara, you do it, or Maya, you do it. And so that's something that's really helped us grow, and that's been fun to watch. And then the third part is we have to become more disruptive defensively. So to go back and answer your question, Michael, about when do you really love a team, I think when you get to a point that they want to be really good defensively, it's a whole nother level. And right now, we have to understand, most teams want to be good, but they don't understand what it really takes to be good. That's why it's fun to watch the Lynx. They're really good defensively.
Yeah.
They're really good. And so we're not there yet. But, again, we're willing and we're receptive, and I believe that we can get to that point. Now, when will that happen? The sooner it happens, the better for all of us, just so you know.
You mentioned data a minute ago, like different stats you look at. Are there things that you value more than others when it comes to statistics and kind of either the finer points or even just broader details of stats?
Well, we look at field goal percentage, and we're really tracking that right now. We say individually scoring at the rim. So if you're one-on-one at the rim, we want to be able to score at a 75 to 80% clip. Because then if your goal as a team is to score at close to a 50% clip, you got to include shots that are mid-range shots. You're taking a shot with more than one defender around you at times. You're adding in your three-point field goal percentage. And so we really look at field goal percentage, offense. We really take a look at taking care of the basketball. We track turnovers and make sure that we ideally want to stay at 11 or 10 per game. But the faster you play, you can withstand some of that, whether that's maybe 12 or 13. We decreased our number of turnovers per game by about 3 to 4 last year per game, and that really helped us. And then we take a look at a category that's not in a stat sheet, and we call them TKOs, total knockouts. So if you get 3 stops in a row, 7 times in a game, you have a better than 95% chance of winning that game. Wow, there you go.
I like it, TKO.
Yeah,
TKO, total knockout.
I think
you want to go?
I think all but maybe 2 or 3 of your players are from either Minnesota or Wisconsin. You brought more Minnesota kids back, via the transfer portal. Do you get the sense that there's kind of momentum growing in terms of recruiting within this state, in terms of getting people that you want to get?
I believe so, and I think it starts with the players that we have, and then it starts with the success on the court, and then it starts with the players that we have spreading the word, and then all of a sudden our fans get into it, and we're trying to do some more outreach to continue to grow our community, our women's basketball community, and then all of a sudden it becomes this kind of circle that continues to grow all around, and so all of a sudden it's just the cool thing to do, and we want to be a part of that, and so I think there's some very positive momentum.
Did you get the sense of that when how soon did it take for you to get here before you got a sense of the passion here for women's basketball, the community, the Gopher fan base, things like that?
Well, I believe I knew about it before I got here, because when you look at the Big Ten tournament, the women's basketball tournament, the first time the women's basketball tournament in the Big Ten sold out was in Minnesota. And so I think there's very, very positive momentum here. I think there are different things that we're doing right now within the community to try to grow this, to get young girls really active within our community and try to reach out to new fans. We're working on that right now. We have our loyal fans, which has been awesome, and now we're just trying to get them to be okay being loud. So we have some that are really loud. We have some that don't want to be quite as loud. So we're trying to, you guys are loud.
Yeah,
I love you guys.
They're good.
That's good.
Go ahead. You got anything else?
I got nothing other than Sweet Martha's or Eau Claire from Eau Claire, or what is it? Eau Claire, isn't that the official treat of the Wisconsin State Fair?
Yeah, it's like a cream puff in Wisconsin. Cream puff in Wisconsin. Sweet Martha's, is that what they're called here? I had them one last year.
Those are the cookies, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband told me we're getting a whole bin to go home.
Yes,
so, okay.
you got to.
So that's on the way out, okay? So we can do that. So I think I'm going to go with the cookies.
Any of the diehards have a question before we let Dawn go? You guys good? You good? All right. What? Healthy. How's the health?
Kennedy is getting closer, so that's been really good to see. Mara is back out full go. That's been great to see. And Jordan, who is one of our transfers as a post player, is still coming back. She had ankle surgery. California kid. She had ankle surgery. I want to say it was in April, so she's still coming back. But she looked great today doing an individual workout. I was like, I can't wait to see her in practice. So that was exciting.
All right. Well,
we're getting close.
Thank you so much, Dawn Plitzuweit. What's that? First game at the barn.
First game at the barn will be on Monday, November 4th.
November 4th.
It is going to be a military appreciation game, right? It is. Okay.
It is now.
It is now. We're just calling it right now. I can't tell you who we're playing yet because the schedule release should be out. We're waiting on one contract yet. So in our world now, after COVID, it used to be before COVID that your legal team at your school and your legal team at this school would both have to make sure the contracts were in agreement. But after COVID, man, that process became a lot tougher. So we've asked, our general counsel has asked for some of the contracts to be worded differently. Other teams have. We're waiting on one contract yet before we can make an official announcement.
And practice in like 3 weeks.
3 weeks official practice starts. That's fast.
It is. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Thanks, Dawn Plitzuweit. Thanks, Kent Youngblood. Stick around. Plenty of stuff coming up tomorrow and beyond.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Thanks again so much to Kent Youngblood, to Dawn Plitzuweit for joining me on stage on Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed our conversation, whether you're listening to it now for the first time or whether you were in the audience on Tuesday. Still some other appearances. I'm done, I think, for my appearances out there, aside from going with my family in a few days. But still some other Star Tribune sports appearances on the stage coming up today and Thursday. So if you're out at the fair, come check that out. Visit the Star Tribune booth, get your chapstick, get all that good stuff. Come sign up for a subscription. They're offering a great deal right now. Come check that out while the fair is still going on. Let us finish with the cooler, kind of an extended one today because we're going to talk Twins. They lose last night 8-6 in extra innings to Atlanta, tried to rally. Down 4-0, got it to extra innings. Down 8-4, got it to 8-6, but couldn't finish this thing off. 7th loss in 9 games, 4th loss in 5 games on the homestand. They fall 2.5 back still in the AL Central race because Cleveland lost. But oh, by the way, Cleveland lost to Kansas City. That was for a 3rd straight time. Kansas City now tied for the AL Central lead with Cleveland. So the Twins 2.5 back of both of those teams right now in the AL Central race. That is getting interesting because we've been focused for so long, at least I have, on this Twins versus Cleveland series. They got 4 games against Cleveland, September 16th through 19th in Cleveland. We've been kind of locking in on that one, saying, okay, that's the one to watch. That's going to determine the division. Well, hold on. Now Kansas City's here as well, right? Twins have a series in Kansas City a little over a week from now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 6th through the 8th in Kansas City. That one is just as consequential, if not more consequential now, given Kansas City's rise, Cleveland's kind of tumble lately. This could be the team they're trying to battle with for AL Central dominance, for wildcard race, things like that. So September 6th through 8th in Kansas City, part of a stretch here that's a little bit dicey, right? The rest of the homestand, you got one more against Atlanta today. Then you've got Toronto in for 3. Then you go on the road at Tampa Bay, at Kansas City. Tampa Bay, not the same team this year that they've been in the past, but that is always a tough one for the Twins. Those road trips to Tampa Bay. After that, they get some home games against the Angels, and the Reds should be okay there. But then the Cleveland series, the Boston series, both of those on the road. Miami, and then Baltimore here to finish it off. Baltimore, one of the best teams in the league. So can the Twins get it to the finish line? Can they get there with these 3 rookie pitchers, with this lineup that's been decimated by injuries? Like I said before, should get Byron Buxton and Brooks Lee back pretty soon. Brooks Lee can't get here fast enough. Edouard Julien, another maybe questionable decision in extra innings, throwing home. Twins don't get the runner there, leads to a big inning. With Atlanta getting 4 runs in the 10th. Julian has done some good things for them this year, but not the guy that has been making all the good plays lately. Had the big error the other night in that really costly loss to St. Louis. So Brooks Lee, hurry back. Byron Buxton, hurry back. Rookie pitchers, David Festa, a lot on his plate today. You do not want to lose. You do not want to get swept at home. You cannot afford that. So they need David Festa to, A, pitch well, and B, maybe give them some innings. Their starters have not been going deep into games. They had another extra inning game yesterday. Just a lot on their plates, a lot on their minds right now as they try to hold on to their playoff position. Still in good shape. Not a lot of other great teams below that kind of wild card line in the AL, so still feeling pretty good about themselves. They will not feel good about themselves, though, if these losses keep mounting. That will do it for me today. A lot of football talk coming up on Thursday's show. Expected to be joined by Randy Johnson to talk Gopher football, and Jim Paulson from the Star Tribune to talk high school football. Those seasons begin in earnest on Thursday. Of course, Gophers at home against North Carolina, Huntington Bank Stadium. I'll be there for that one. Sitting with some friends in the stands for that one, so that should be fun. High school season kicks off in earnest on Thursday night as well. So lots of football talk on Thursday's show. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Back at it again tomorrow.